Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Random Chatter. This is our top 3 news stories of the week for May. No, not May yet. Boy, I was thinking May the 4th already. It's April 25th. End of April.
Yeah, last couple of weeks,
we haven't recorded in a couple of weeks here. Been some slow news weeks, and we've had a bunch of stuff come up in our lives that precluded us from recording. So we're back. We're excited to be back with you guys and to share some stuff. We just got finished with our review show for this week, where I didn't really watch anything for the last 3 weeks. But
good job, Lou. Good way to represent.
Yeah, thanks for calling me out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hey, you said it, not me.
But we do have some news here this week. Not a lot, but a little bit of stuff here and there. Let's dig right into it. So the first news story we have
Oscar winners.
No, we're not talking about Oscars. That's going on right this very minute.
Spoiler alert: the Oscar winners are never us. And I don't mean like that we're not getting awards, but it's just like
the Academy.
We always lose. Yeah.
So, we are in the midst of pandemic entertainment. Nothing's changed there. It's been this way for the last, year plus now. But we are getting vaccinated. People are starting to open up things and, do more stuff. So normalcy may be returning sometime soon. In fact, Warner Media has said that they're going to return back to exclusive theatrical releases for next year. So aside from what they're doing now with HBO Max, where they're doing everything pretty much on streaming and in theaters at the same time, they'll be going back to a more traditional format next year. Tim, I mean, this is more like what we had in the past. Are you happy about this? Did you get used to what we had for pandemic and are going to miss it? What are your thoughts?
I think it's fine. I think that the pendulum needs to start swinging the other way at some point, and I think that we're going to be seeing this from several production studios as we progress through 2021. So, for them to be setting a benchmark for 2022, saying, yeah, that's what we're going to do, it seems pretty reasonable. Are we going to completely go to how things were the way before? I don't think so. I think that there's a lot of expectations by consumers to have things more available to them at home. And whether it is day and date or there's going to be a 2-week delay or something like that, I think that consumers are going to push for a lot of that. So I think we're going to continue to see some adjustment over the next year, maybe 2 years even, from production studios to kind of find that right fit. And I think you're going to see some studios doing some different things too.
Okay. Eric, any different thoughts on that?
I think that if we look back a couple of years, the theater industry was already struggling before the pandemic hit. And I think that with the pandemic here, we are forgetting that we already needed a new paradigm for theaters anyway. Pushing to get back to where we were. So, I mean, we just had a radical change, right? Radical over the last 12 months. And there was resistance to it in some cases, but we collectively kind of figured out a system, and it's not a great system. We do need to get back to getting things into the theaters. But I wonder if we need to have everything back into the theaters. Maybe we go back to what it used to be like 30 years ago. And we have like a handful of really big theatrical releases instead of like 3 major releases every weekend. One does great, one kind of hangs in there, and then the other one, which could have been a great movie, just falls along the wayside because they're crowded out. Maybe we kind of keep the streaming system and we release independent films there, and we release comedies there and stuff like that. And we save the big tentpole stuff, Wonder Woman, James Bond, Mad Max, Star Wars, and that kind of stuff for the theaters. And I'm not saying only put those in, but I'm saying maybe be a little bit selective. Maybe a third of what we would normally put into theaters, keep on streaming. maybe half. And then we go back to the theaters being an experience where it's an experience, like it's something they'll look forward to, and you, like it's more of an event. It feels more special.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the meantime, we can catch other things that don't necessarily warrant viewing in a theater. And we can catch it sooner, and we can pay. I don't mind paying for these streaming services and stuff. I'd probably pay for too many, but if they're going to continue with new releases, I'm happy to continue subscribing. It's still a better deal for me than the theaters. And yet I've got access to more. They're still going to be able to keep their subscription numbers up enough to keep bringing in the revenue. Because that's the other thing too. So if they throw everything into the theaters, are we going to see the subscribers for some of these streaming services drop? And then how do they react? Do they not release as much, or do they release more to try to bring them back? And where does that all balance out?
That's a really good question, because I mean, you're starting to see some stuff. I'm not saying be pulled back, but they've been toying with us on things that, well, now maybe it's not going to release on HBO Max or whatever the streaming service would be, and only going to be in theaters. And then we saw the Black Widow one change its thing a few times here and there, and now it's going to go to that premium subscription service thing where you pay more for it to get it early, and then
I like that,
so forth. And I think you're right with a lot of the stuff, Eric. I think that you and I and Tim and a lot of our listeners, what do we see in a theater? We see big blockbuster stuff in the theaters, stuff that we've talked about, things that deserve the big screen treatment, right? But there are times when, I want to see a comedy in the theaters. I want to go see a good, roll on the floor, well, not in the theater, but, grab my belly and laugh movie with a big crowd that's going to be energetic and everybody laughing at the same things. You want that occasionally. The cinematic stuff that stuff that's being awarded tonight for the Academy Awards, there are some things that you want to see in a big screen that are just epic movies that should be seen on a big screen. But for the most part, like you, I want to see most of those on TV. I mean, I've got a nice setup here. I'd like to see a movie without having to leave my house, and I don't want to go to the theater and do that whole drive there, pay for the popcorn, sit in a seat,
parking in some cases,
somebody next to me, talking
babysitters,
to me, paying, exactly all that stuff. Yep.
Well, we covered.
So there's that.
Go ahead.
There's that thing we need in the middle somewhere there, where you're going to have the best of both worlds. Maybe it's a shorter time frame between release in the theater and then release on streaming service.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 2 weeks, maybe it's a month. Who knows?
And that window's kind of been narrowing over the last couple of years, anyway. But like you and Robin and I covered yesterday on Movie Chatter. Of the three of us, I think I liked the movie the best. Our listeners out there should check that out. That's the most recent episode of Movie Chatter. And I don't know that, well, I do know. I would not have gone to see that in the theater. Just wouldn't do it. But if it came straight to a streaming service, I would have seen it the day it came out to the streaming service. It's a good movie. I really liked it. It's not the type of movie that I really need to see on a big screen. It's more of an intimate movie that's just very set in, ironically, we'll say in real life. But I don't need to be in a theater for it. I can watch that in the comfort of my living room, and it almost feels more real that way. I would like to see those styles of movies continue to be released that way. I don't think everything needs to hit the theater. I think we should have regular theatrical releases. I'm not saying like once a month we should have a big theatrical movie, but traditionally we have at least 3 to 5 notable movies a weekend. And then there's a bunch of other movies nobody's heard of that also get released. The quantity of movies that get released in theaters it's higher than people realize.
Yeah. Yep. And
there's a lot of stuff that nobody sees.
Yeah.
Yeah. Building up to the pandemic, there were more and more. There were so many movies truly that would come out. I mean, if you look at the weekly listings, and there'd be 10 movies on there that you never heard of every single week. Well,
look, when we used to build our movie draft, we'd have about 30 movies covering 3 months. So that's 10 movies a month, and we would normally go and only get the things that we recognize that were wide release. There were a lot of things that were also in wide release we'd never heard of and we didn't even include.
Yeah, right.
I don't think it needs to be that saturated.
No, it really doesn't. And like I said, I think there's going to be a right sizing of this. I think that people now are going to have higher expectations of the streaming services, especially given what they're paying for. And it's, one thing to accept that with Disney Plus, which of course has been going great, and we get tons of original content out of them.
Just passed Hulu,
like cinematic,
to make it the number 3 streaming service.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're getting cinematic quality stuff for whatever it is, $7.99 a month or something.
Or $15 if you're HBO Max.
Exactly. So, you look at HBO Max, and their stuff is obviously a lot of Warner Brothers content, and there's some other partner production studios that are in there. We have our follow-up story here kind of very much relates to this, because we're looking at partnerships between production studios and streaming services also. For production studios who don't have their own streaming services.
Right.
And they're already starting to basically pave the way, particularly looking into next year, to see what these things are going to look like, and to make sure that they are taking care of consumers and consumers' expectations for what they're able to access from home.
Which is going to be tricky for some of the streaming services, because again, HBO Max, $15 a month, that's great for right now. They brought in a crap ton of new subscribers with Justice League. I forget the numbers, many millions of new subscribers just based on that one film alone.
And then they probably lost a bunch of subscribers with Mortal Kombat, but
look at it this way though, Tim. I mean, they charge a hefty penny for it. It was the same fee you were paying for it as part of your cable package if you had it there.
Yes.
Yep. And then they announced all these movies throughout the whole year of 2021 that are going to be now released on HBO Max instead of in the theaters.
Also in the theaters.
And also in the theaters. And it was almost a no-brainer to say, I'm paying for it anyways as part of my cable package. I'll just keep this and I'll get movies. And they've got enough good stuff, and they've been around for a long enough time. They're mature to the point where I think I'll probably continue to pay the $15 a month for HBO Max, because I know the content's good. They have good original stuff, and they're producing high quality stuff.
And if you looked at the library on there is great, but the counterpoint that I'll make to what you said, Lou, is that this year we've basically been getting those day and date releases at no additional cost.
Right.
Next year, that's basically a benefit that's being taken away.
Right. And if you look at the numbers,
so what do we do?
For HBO subscribers prior to HBO Max, they weren't like they were 10 years ago or 15 years ago. I mean, Netflix has really taken over the home movie market.
Oh, yeah.
And some people still get HBO and Showtime, but the number of people who subscribe to those premium cable packages went down a lot. Now, HBO Max, now it can be streaming, and I can get it on my phone, and it's not locked into my cable box. And, it's getting a little more accessible, but it's all about the customer perception, which goes back to your point, Tim. And we've got two different balancing acts going on here. One is people's expectations, and another one is people's complacency. Once you start subscribing for this, you're used to it coming out of your bank account every month. You don't pay attention to it anymore. And so when you're subscribing to Netflix and Hulu and HBO Max and Disney Plus, and you maybe probably get Amazon Prime, and then I don't know, 1 or 2 or 3 other things too, like at some point you start wondering, is it really worth it if everything's going back to the theater anyway? But on the flip side, you're already budgeting all of that stuff in. A lot of people, just out of complacency, will not go and cancel those services, or they'll, this weekend, I'm busy this week with work. This weekend, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to go through and figure out what to cancel. But then the weekend comes up and you got to mow your lawn and you got to do this and that. And people just don't actually cancel. But on the flip side, I don't know. They've got to make it worth it. And right now, HBO Max is a hard sell with, with losing that day and date release thing.
Yeah.
So I think that they're still going to have to balance it with continuing to release stuff exclusive to HBO Max.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see who's got the bigger back catalog, HBO Max or Netflix.
But the new stuff is what gets attention. The new stuff is what you can put on a big old banner. And when you pull up Netflix and it's like, oh, wow, superhero comedy, Melissa McCarthy, I did Thunder Force. I didn't know about that. Yeah, let me watch the trailer, see if it looks any good. If you don't have something new to pop up on that splash screen, I don't care how big your back catalog is, because the people who are more obsessed with movies and stuff like us probably already seen most of the back catalog.
Sure.
Well, and I mean, kind of as a subscriber of HBO Max, and again, I'm not dissing the stuff that we get, which is fantastic. But again, it does kind of feel like they're taking things away. If they're no longer going to do these day and date releases for these big movies, I kind of feel like I'm losing something for the price that I'm paying.
And you absolutely are. They're taking something away from you. But for example, like in my train of thought on this, I had paid for it before the pandemic, and all of a sudden they said, "Hey, things are really crappy outside right now, so we're giving you all this stuff next year." Never said it was me continuing for in perpetuity. So it's just true. Next year.
Are they taking something away, or are they just no longer adding the thing that they added?
That's what I'm kind of getting at. Yeah. So now in 2022, I'm like, okay, now I'm back to what I was happy paying for before, and I'll stay with it.
I signed up for HBO Max the day it came out, before they announced all this day and date stuff in 2021.
Yeah, me
it's
too.
Great. And yes, but to Tim's point, though, the perception, people feel like something's being taken away.
They're taken away.
It's justified, but people feel like it's, and so what are you going to give me instead? And it's the most expensive streaming service. So
we signed up for it with the release of Wonder Woman 84.
Boy, did you not regret that mistake.
and so it's basically been that has been the standard for us, was HBO Max with these day and date releases for big movies.
Right.
And I mean, and again, it's not knocking the catalog that they have there, which is absolutely fantastic. But really, I mean, I'm strongly considering that maybe in a couple more months, drop the subscription. And then when something big does come on there that, we really want to see, then we'll get it again and watch whatever's there and keep it for a couple months and then cancel it again. So, we may be, kind of more casual back and forth subscribers.
And I think we're going to see a lot of that. I think we're going to see the people juggling back and forth between, okay, let me get CBS All Access for a couple months and catch up with that stuff. And I'm going to cancel that and I'll pick up Peacock for a couple months. And
Yeah. Which, it's like you wonder why these companies don't do something different where, it's cheaper to keep customers than it is to get new customers. I mean, I just went through this with XM Radio. I ponied up for XM Radio when I got my new vehicle that had, XM Radio in it for free for whatever. I'm like, okay. And they gave me a special deal for a year for, $6 or $5 for whatever it was. And then that ended after the year and I went to 21 something. I'm like, no.
I got to remember to cancel
I canceled.
Mine. Thank you.
Yeah, and I called to cancel, and you can't cancel without talking to somebody. So you get the chat thing going. I'm like, no, it's just too expensive, and back and forth. And lo and behold, what if we gave you the same thing you have now for $5 a month? Okay, I'm like, but why'd you have to do it? Why'd you have to, jack me up, make me pissed off, make me call in, and I knew what they were going to do anyway. So because it happened to my wife before when she did it, I'm like, I know they're going to offer me this. If they do it, I'll keep it. If they don't, I'm just going to walk away because I don't need the service.
Yeah.
And they wasted their time. They wasted your time.
Yep.
In that whole thing,
and possibly pissed off a customer that may not want to come back because you're gonna, you're gonna give me the same service I had for $21 a month now for $5 a month.
Right.
Yeah.
Like really? So.
And it's one thing, like I know after the first season of Mandalorian, Disney Plus kind of went into a lull for a little while because they really didn't have any of that, big Star Wars or Marvel level new content. And yeah, I mean, some people were disappointed and they dropped off, but clearly Disney Plus has continued skyrocketing, so it really didn't hurt them that much. But that's an easier pill to swallow at price point versus HBO Max, which is 3 times the price practically.
Yeah.
To say, oh yeah, it's fine. I can go, a month, 2 months, 3 months without anything really new on HBO Max. So how am I justifying the cost?
Right.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, back to your point, you were talking about Disney Plus and Sony, and they've got this massive movie deal. The Spider-Man films are going to be coming. Well, pretty much. My understanding is all of the Sony products, including like the Spider-Man stuff, which includes Venom and Morbius and stuff like that, it's going to hit Netflix first.
Mm-hmm.
Which would be kind of like so it hits theaters, and then I think there's a 9-month window, and it's going to hit Netflix. And then about the time it would normally hit television or any sort of an ad promoted viewing, it's all going to Disney Plus.
Yes.
Is that correct? Is my understanding of that? Because the articles I read were kind of like, oh, here's the 27 different loopholes and how things all tie in together and stuff. So
I think largely that's how it's going to work. And of course, this is for the Marvel related Sony things. This isn't for any other type of Sony production. Those things aren't going to go to Disney Plus because Disney Plus doesn't care about that stuff. But the Marvel related stuff, and this also does include like, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies and that kind of stuff as well. So fundamentally, what we're going to end up with is that you will be able to watch every MCU film on Disney Plus with the exception of The Incredible Hulk, because distribution is owned by Paramount on that.
And really, are you missing anything there?
Well, no, but still, when you're a completionist,
I know.
Or if, hey, it's been a long time, I do want to go back and just kind of, remind myself what happened with that movie. If Paramount was smart, and of course they have Paramount Plus, but if they were smart, they would kind of cut a deal with Disney Plus and say, yeah, here you go, because no one's watching it anyway. But
and when they do, they also ask what happened with that movie.
Yeah. But yeah, so you mentioned the Netflix thing, and so this comes on the heels of just a couple weeks ago, Sony announcing a big deal with Netflix for not only a good portion of their catalog, but starting next year, starting with 2022, basically that thing, Eric, that you mentioned, that there's a new movie, that movie comes out X number of months later, it's going to end up on Netflix. So Netflix is kind of, it's clearly not exclusive because Disney Plus will still be getting some additional stuff on the back end with the Marvel related properties. But it is practically exclusive with Netflix. So Sony, who does not have their own streaming service, this is a very smart move for them.
Yeah.
Because there's no sense in investing in their own in their own infrastructure. Yes, Sony has a catalog of films. It's not that extensive, really, for them to be able to say, oh, hey, look at what we're doing, unless they partner up with a bunch of other production studios. And guess what? Most of those production studios already have partnerships because Sony is that late to the game. So we've been waiting. I mean, we've talked about it on Guardians of the MCU like a few months ago. When is Sony going to either get their own streaming service or partner with someone else? And of course, the leaning toward was partnering with someone else.
But to be fair, I mean, they did it well. This looks like a smart move.
Yeah. And this definitely takes care of the consumers, especially on that Marvel side, because when this Netflix news first came out, a lot of people, including us, were like, all right, so this is cool for Netflix, but really they're dissing Disney that much on the Marvel stuff? Like the Disney people want to watch the Star Wars movies, both the new ones and the old ones. So I'm glad that they did this. And I'm sure that this had also been in the works for many, many months, just like the Netflix deal was. And they just they spaced the announcements because they wanted to give Netflix their own breathing room. So,
well, another thing too, isn't aside from the Marvel stuff, aren't a lot of the Sony properties also now going over to Hulu as part of this arrangement as well?
oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I thought, like I said, there's like multiple levels of things going on here. My understanding is, that's going to Hulu. Like Sony seems to have really positioned themselves well here. I have to say, for not having their own streaming service, they've got their hands in enough different directions. I think somebody thought this through pretty well.
Yeah,
because it looks like all of the non-MCU stuff is going to Hulu, and then the MCU stuff's going to Disney Plus, and so it's getting distributed that way.
Well, so then that's an interesting position for Netflix.
Yeah,
because they announced this, and Netflix is then like, all right, so
but Netflix gets it first,
I guess. Yeah, Netflix does get things first, which is their advantage.
Right.
But then when it comes to the catalog, it seems that Netflix is going to get some stuff and Hulu is going to get some stuff.
I don't think and this goes back to that whole big front page banner thing. I don't think Netflix cares about the non-Netflix exclusive catalog. I really don't think they do. I don't think they care about the back catalog. So there's some obvious things. Friends, The Office, like these evergreen properties, right? Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Okay, so aside from those, I don't think Netflix cares if it's not something Netflix created. They want new stuff. They want things to headline. And they want new things to rotate in. And if it rotates out, that's fine. I bet if you go back and look at the numbers for their quote back catalog, other than those top 10, Friends, Office, Parks and Rec, etc., they don't get viewed that much.
They also want to be the service that you can get to and say, you're watching whatever the new series is, and when that's over, you're like, I want to watch whatever from
then they need to make it not so hard to browse their back catalog.
Well,
I mean, most of the stuff I want to watch on Netflix, if it's not something that's recent or like really prominent, I have to go and search. I can't just browse through and say, okay, it's this and that and boom. Like I can't just dive down 3 or 4 levels and get to it. You got to search. Like the navigation is tricky.
Yeah.
Other than the recommendation engine, which is really good, and the back catalog does serve that. I'm not saying they don't care. I'm saying they don't care. Like I'm saying it's not a priority for them. It's nice to have, but that's not what they're basing their business around. I don't think that it's this sacred thing they have to protect.
Yeah.
I think that getting the Sony properties in first so that people watch them on Netflix, and by the time they hit Hulu and Disney Plus, people are like,
people are bored with it. Yeah.
Disney Plus is different because MCU is evergreen.
Right.
It's always going to be popular, but the rest of the stuff, I don't think Netflix minds that they're not having it because they're going to have it when it's popular.
Sure.
They're going to lose it when it's stale.
Yeah, it's not in our topics, and don't need to spend a lot of time on it. But one thing that was just announced like within the last week that I'm really excited about is that crap, what's the series?
I don't know.
Robots, the animated series.
Oh, Death, Love, and Robots or something?
Yeah, Death, Love, and Robots, yeah.
Death, Love, and Robots, yeah.
Season 2.
They just announced a season 2 for that. So like that's another like, and I know I've said it a gazillion times. I love Netflix's animation stuff. Their stuff is so freaking good.
Yeah.
There's a lot that comes out of it. There's another interesting thing though that Netflix doesn't seem to partner in. That having Hulu, and then just recently getting Apple TV, noticing that those two services will they are basically tracking what other things you are subscribed to, and they will show you, hey, we know you have a subscription to HBO Max. Here's something that's on HBO Max, which you can watch through our service. So they're cross-listing there. Hulu does that.
Amazon
and
Prime
Apple
does.
TV does that. And Amazon Prime does. Netflix does not. Netflix does not want anyone playing in their pool. And I'm not knocking them for it. But I will say it does make things a heck of a lot more convenient when I can just be like scrolling through Hulu and see, and that's on HBO Max. Didn't know. Okay, whatever. Doesn't matter to me what it's on. I subscribe to it. I can click and I'm there. And that just makes it a crap ton more convenient.
Yeah, I was skeptical of that service at first, and now I've gotten to the point where I like it because I only have to check two places: what's next through the Apple TV, and then separately Netflix. That's great.
Yeah. Yep. It was confusing at first. I'm like, why is this here? And then very quickly became, okay, this is a nice interface and I know how to use it now so I can find all the stuff I want to find.
Yeah. Especially if you're like midway through a season of something and, I need to finish that. Yeah. The more you plug into that, the more useful it becomes to you. And then Netflix. Come on, guys.
But there are things like that are helping to make the user experience with streaming services so much better for us.
Yeah.
The streaming services themselves are recognizing that things have gotten very fractured because there's a gazillion streaming services out there and they're all, they were all stovepipe. They're all their own individual platforms. And everyone kind of, they build their walls around their stuff and say, hey, no one else can get to this. But now I appreciate that we're starting to see some of this cross-platform stuff. And I think it just makes the experience that much better.
I would agree with that. I got to give props to Apple too, because they kind of did it first. It didn't take long for Amazon to also do that. And I've not really gone through Hulu's iteration of it. I've heard good things about it, but I really wish, like, it would be so nice if Netflix would jump on that too. And it would benefit them too, because then I would go watch Netflix things. And then you have to leave the Netflix app to go back to the Apple TV app or the Prime app or whatever. So you're still kind of, once you get into that garden, you're still in Netflix's garden until you leave it.
Yeah.
Why would you not want to invite me into your garden as opposed to when I'm looking at 7 others?
Right. And in defense of Netflix right now, Netflix is number one.
Yeah.
They've been number one.
Need it.
They're going to be number one for a while. I think, they're going to be challenged for their supremacy within the next couple of years. So I think they do need to start looking at some of this cooperative stuff pretty soon.
And that's the thing. I think the Sony thing
helps
Netflix.
Right now, they don't need to really examine a lot of this cooperative stuff because they're king of the hill.
Yeah.
They can say it. All right. You guys do your thing. We don't care. We still have a gazillion more subscribers than all of you put together.
But there's a legitimate concern that can change with them losing both their back catalog and with other streaming services ramping up their production and stuff too. But that circles back to what we were just discussing. I think that a lot of people are looking at this Sony Disney merger. And that, that's great. And everybody's like, oh, Sony's like got this figured out and it's really smart. And I agree. But a couple of weeks ago, Sony also announced this big deal with Netflix. And I think that it helps Netflix a lot. It's not just that this helps Sony. Netflix now has a big studio that's committed for several years. That they're going to get their first run theatrical releases. And Sony is not like the biggest studio, but they are a big studio. And they have a lot of stuff coming out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not nothing.
No. But I mean, they all have to be cognizant of what's going on. They all have to adapt to the market changes. And, just know that if you're on top now, doesn't mean you're going to be there a year from now. Right. So,
though to be fair, Netflix has been good about maintaining that. So,
they've done it for a long time. But I mean, there's so many more players now. I think they got to watch themselves and just see where they're at.
True.
Yeah. One last story, which probably isn't as big as the other ones, but
not yet.
It still should be. Well, yeah, it still should be discussed. Captain America 4 has been announced. This is going to be done by the same showrunner that did Falcon and Winter Soldier on Disney Plus, which makes sense given what we got at the end of that series and kind of rolling right into Captain America 4.
Yeah.
Tim, you're a resident Marvel guy here because you do a podcast for that. What are your thoughts? Any more details you know of that we didn't get yet?
There have been no additional details released on this, but obviously we're really excited about this. Very excited that Malcolm Spellman, who is that showrunner for Falcon and Winter Soldier, that he's going to be involved. He did a great job putting that show together. Mm-hmm. The full expectation here is that this is forward looking. So this is going to be Sam as Captain America. I'm hoping, what I'm really, really hoping for is, at the end of, and I don't think it's a real spoiler for anything, the very end of the last episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier, they basically changed the title card to Captain America and the Winter Soldier, which was cool for that. Obviously, that can't really be the title of the movie because there was already a movie with an extremely similar title.
Right.
What I'm hoping for, what I would love to see, is Captain America and the White Wolf. If they are going to continue having Bucky involved, which I really think that they should, because their relationship grew considerably through this series, and we really also haven't tapped the potential that Bucky has yet. We're actually just starting to see it. It was so. And to be honest, through the movies, I never really liked the character that much.
Neither did I.
Well, he was broken for so long, and now he's not as broken.
Exactly. He has finally found himself, and he is in control of his own life. And I'd like to see more come out of it. And I think that it's a solid partnership, and I'd love to see them. They've done, I think, in total 3 mentions of the moniker of White Wolf, and I'd like to see that actually come to a meaningful fruition.
He's not really the Winter Soldier anymore.
No, he is not. The Winter Soldier was the mind control thing that Hydra had. Yeah,
when he was broken, and now he's not. Yeah,
they need to move away from it.
Exactly.
And not to belabor this out, but obviously in what we had up until this point in the Marvel Cinematic Universe was the overall arcing story of Thanos, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do we know what the overall arcing story of moving forward is now with Marvel?
No.
I mean, no.
Eric does. Tim doesn't. Okay.
Tim knows.
There are things. There are elements that are that we haven't seen yet, but that are known, that we're going to have. Kang the Conqueror coming in on the next Ant-Man film, and we have obviously a lot of heroes lined up in Disney Plus, and we suspect it's going to culminate to a Young Avengers thing. We know obviously that they now have rights to mutants, and somehow we're going to see some integration of that. But ultimately, in terms of phases 1 through 3 were really all about Thanos. We don't know what phases 4 through whatever ultimately are going to culminate to. We just know there's various elements at play.
I think the first phase or 2, and it seems to be how they've got it set up, is going to be more about world building again. It's going to go back to laying a new groundwork.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't think we're going to get anywhere with another big Thanos for another wave or 2 after that. Like, I think it's going to be a wave of kind of resetting, putting all the chess pieces back on the board. And then the next 2 waves are going to be something substantial. Like you said, we know we're getting Kang. We're getting, aren't we getting Secret Invasion as a Disney Plus series?
As Disney Plus series,
okay, so if it's going to be a Disney Plus series, that's not going to be like a major multi-wave thing in the theaters.
Right. But we also know that especially from the comics, it was hugely impactful.
Yeah, it was.
For generations worth of comics. So we expect, that we're going to see some lasting impact there. Yeah. We expect we're going to see some lasting impact from this whole multiverse thing.
I really think the multiverse
which is going to go to Doctor Strange and Spider-Man and probably Kang. And that's where you kind of muddle time travel with multiverse, because Kang is technically a time traveler. not really in the multiverse, but time travel, when you mess with it, can give branches off into a multiverse, basically like what we saw, how they described in Endgame, which is then some of the play that we're seeing in the Loki series as well, that we're going to expect to see there. So
I really think the multiverse thing is going to have some legs. I think it's going to run for a while. Plus, as soon as you bring Fantastic Four in and get Reed Richards into the ball game, I mean, we're going back to the multiverse again somehow. Like it's just everything he does is like all kind of cosmic behind the scenes stuff. Yeah. So I don't think it's going to be Galactus. I don't know that there's enough storytelling there really. I don't think it's going to be, I think it's going to somehow come back to the multiverse thing. They're going to introduce that now. It's going to lay in the background for a while, kind of like Thanos did. And then it's going to be some big thing near the end with multiverse stuff, with mutants, Fantastic Four. One of the multiverse things will bring back Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans and stuff. And it'll be like, oh my gosh, they're here again, you know, for a movie or two.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would also expect that moving forward, and we already kind of got a sense of it, particularly in Endgame, with Captain Marvel and the fact that, you know, she's a cosmic hero. She is tremendously powered. And so we know if there's anything that occurs that is very earthbound, you can't bring her into the mix of that story. There are other characters you can't bring into the mix of that story.
Right.
So I think that we are going to start to really see, and just as has been established in the comics for a long time, and even though there's some interplay, you have your earthbound characters, you have your mystic characters, and you have your cosmic characters.
Yeah.
And I think that now that the slate of characters is expanding, we're going to see those territories get much better established.
And I think that's why we're seeing things like Thor going off with the Guardians.
Exactly.
So that we can get the young Avengers on Earth that are not like gods. You know,
right.
Teenagers with they're the sidekicks, the Teen Titans. You know?
Right. Yeah. Right.
And yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So, you know, they have to be able to balance that stuff out. And again, I would still fully expect that we're going to see some interplay between and amongst those at certain intersections. But I don't expect it to be, and even Kevin Feige has alluded to the fact that don't expect that we're going to do the Thanos kind of thing again, where we're going to have these three phases and they're all going to lead to this one destination. Expect that we are going to have basically some shorter storylines, you know, so it's not going to go 10 years before you see the culmination of it. It may be going 3 or 4 years until you see the culmination of something. And I suspect, again, that's where we're going to be dealing with certain groups of characters, because also at this point, they can't cram every single character that they own into a movie.
They got a lot more than they used
and
to
plus
have.
10 years is too long. I mean, really, it worked out. You could do that one time.
The Thanos thing was awesome, but it was a long build.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think you're right. 3 or 4 years, give you a good story, get some epic storytelling. Yeah. Maybe don't arch it over, 20 movies or whatever they had.
Right.
Yeah. And like Eric said, I mean, they're building a lot of groundwork now. So we have Eternals coming up. We have we just got the teaser for Shang-Chi coming up. So they're establishing new characters. Also in Disney Plus, we're going to see, you know, them establishing new characters. We've got She-Hulk coming up. We've got Ms. Marvel. We've got Moon Knight. Yeah. So they're building in a lot of these new characters that they're introducing, and yeah, I think that's just going to add to how they're creating their groups of characters and what those characters are going to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I think that brings us to the end of the episode.
I think so.
Next week, we're going to bring back our lightning round stuff.
Yes.
Which will be fun because that's always good stuff to do.
We have about 3 hours worth of lightning round stuff saved up. So we're going to wipe it clean and we're going to start over with a clean slate and like stuff better happen. You hear us, studios? Because now we need new lightning round stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Give us some stuff we can talk about.
Yeah.
Eric, why don't you take us out?
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. We, like you said, we're foregoing our lightning round this week, but we've been gone for a while and we had a little bit longer episode this time around. So I think that makes up for it. So if you are watching this on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the like button and the notification button so that you get alerted when new episodes drop. Also, go to randomchatter.com where you can find all of the other podcasts on the Random Chatter Network, because not all of them are on YouTube. We have a lot of other shows. You're going to want to make sure you catch them there. So randomchatter.com. You can also go to randomchatter.com/store to pick up t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts. Summer coming up. Maybe more t-shirts and not, well, I don't know, with the weather being what it is. Get one of each, just in case. You can never be too sure. And then also go to randomchatter.com/Patreon for some more information on how you can help support the network. That is going to do it for this week. We will be back, I think, Tuesday night with something for Movie Chatter. Did we ever decide what we're going to cover, Lou?
I thought we were going to cover Hitman's Bodyguard.
Are we? That's good that I watched it then. All right. I feel like...
Because I still have to watch that, but I thought that was what we were going to cover.
I feel ahead of the game without being ahead of the game. That's good. That's good. I'm already ready to watch it again, so that'll work out well. So Tuesday night, we're going to be doing Hitman's Bodyguard on Movie Chatter. That's going to be about 8:30 p.m. Eastern, which I think with daylight savings time is GMT -4. And so, again, right. Subscribe and get that notification button, and you'll be aware of when we start streaming. That's it. Until next time,